Welcome everybody on behalf of all the staff down there in Booksmith. We're thrilled. It's standing room only and not many local faces here. You come from, who's from the farthest? That is Canada, I know, California. Jersey. Wisconsin. Jersey.
And there's someone. Do we have someone from Oregon? California.
Well, as obviously all of you guys know, Robert McCammon was one of the 6 writers invited to New York when public broadcast televised their show just a few years ago on the 100 best novels ever written, back hundreds of years, and your guy Robert McCammon was up there, and we're awfully proud to have him here. One bit of logistics, and then we'll bring him up here. If you'll be so kind, including you guys on the steps, well, you get a head start. When Mr. McCammon is finished with his remarks and the questions, he will sign your books, all of your books. But I'm going to ask that you treat this event like a wedding, funeral, or bar mitzvah, and keep your seat until Mr. McCammon has made his way to the signing table.
Let's not treat it like a funeral, please.
Well, one thing we know is the author's here, and I'll get out of the way. Here is Robert McCammon.
Wow, thank you for being here. I'm so glad the weather wasn't so bad. I mean, it was kind of bad this morning, but I'm so glad it cleared up, everybody. Thank you all for being here. So we have Jersey. We have Wisconsin in the back, I know. Chicago. There you go, Chicago.
Cincinnati.
Where, Louisiana?
Missouri.
Missouri? Whereabouts Missouri? Okay, great. Well, welcome, everybody. Is this, for the travelers, is this your first trip to Birmingham?
Yes.
Oh, it is? Okay. Well, hopefully you'll enjoy Birmingham. And again, I'm glad the weather is not going to be a washout tonight, so hope not. But, well, all right, I'm going to read a little, well, all right. I'm so excited because the series is moving right along. We have 2 more books in the series after The King of Shadows. I'm going to talk a little bit about those last 2 books in the series. First of all, do any of you know, or do all of you know the Leviathan story? Yes. You do know the Leviathan story. But some of you don't know the Leviathan story, right? Okay. Right. Well, when I finished Speaks of Nightbird, I was really excited about it. And it was going to Viking Press in New York. So, at that time, Viking Press is like the temple of publishing. I mean, it's like marble floors and just a beautiful place. So I go in, I'm really excited about it. So they're going to publish Speaks of Nightbird. So I go in to talk to the editor who's doing the editing, and she says, you know, there's some things I don't quite understand about this book. I don't understand why you emphasize the religious aspect as much as you did, because she said, I don't really understand that religion was that important in colonial America. Right there is a little bit of a red flag, right there. And so she says also, what is this word right here? This word, Leviathan. What does that mean? And I'm completely knocked out because, you know, Leviathan was the name of a very popular religious treatise at that era. And also, Leviathan is just a word you use now. You know, everybody, you use the word now. And so it really bothered me that this person was in New York, within walking distance of the library. Absolutely. Could have looked this word up long before I got there. And she's asking me what the word means. So, anyway, they didn't publish the book because I couldn't work with the editor. But in every book now, I use the word Leviathan. Somewhere in the book, somewhere in every book of the Matthew series is the word Leviathan. And the last book in the series is named Leviathan. So I'm thinking, you look back and you think, well, was that a bad thing that she didn't know the name Leviathan, didn't know the word Leviathan? Actually, no, because I was able to kind of use that as fodder, I guess, as working fodder. And now, approaching the last book, I've got it down. Leviathan is the name. And Leviathan means something. There's a meaning to the word, So that's my Leviathan story. But it's quite a shock to realize that people in some of these editors don't really know. How shall I put this? Much because we're on video. We're on video. I forgot. Because some of these editors, they're great. They've gone to great schools and publishing schools and everything, but they do live in a bubble. And sometimes I really don't understand much about the rest of the country. Well, okay, let me, well, if I'm a little bit dazed, please understand, because Simon & Schuster is doing a special edition of Swan Songs due out in April. It's not a hardback, it's a paperback, but it is a special edition. And they asked me to read the book, to make sure there were no errors in it. And I read it in 2 nights. Wow. I have been exhausted every day. I've been knocked out. Well, number one thing I'm reading, I'm thinking, well, see, I haven't read this book in probably, 8, 10 years, at least, And so I'm reading the book, and I'm thinking, man, this is not bad. You wrote this. It's a weird thing. You read a book that you've written 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago, but it's 10 years since you've last read it. It's almost like you're reading the work of somebody else. I mean, you understand that, right? It's like, really you think, God, and I really think I could never write a book like that again. There's no way. There's just so much energy in that book, so much energy. And anyway, I was really exhausted after I finished it up. But that comes out in April. Very excited about that. Got some. Shall I even mention this? I don't even know. It's slow. It's so slow. Well, there are 3 film things working. So that's a good thing. Well, we get excited about it. I used to get so excited about it, but it's like, no, it's just going around and around the track in slow motion. So the 3 things, but I can't really talk about them. No. For some reason they don't want you to talk about it, And then they say, don't talk about that, and then the next day it appears in the Hollywood Reporter. So it's like, okay, I've done my thing, I haven't talked about it. Anyway, so excited about that. 3 things. Swan Song is not one of them. I wish it were, but it's not. But anyway, let me proceed to the King of Shadows. Have everybody here read this book already? Read this book already? Well, I have to say, I've gotten a little bit of this used to not bother me at all when I got complaints about the book. It used to never bother me, but for some reason now, I guess as I'm older, it's bothering me a little bit. Some people have said, they're disappointed in the book because they don't get on to Italy. They don't get on to Italy, and they don't find the mirror, and they don't this, that, and the other. But you have to understand what's coming. Let me just say, the worst is yet to be. As Lillehorn said to Matthew, I think in Freedom of the Mask, he said, "There's much worse than Professor Fell." That's exactly true. The worst is yet to be in the Leviathan. So excited about it, but again, it's a building thing too. The King of Shadows. There are things that happen in the King of Shadows that have a real repercussion going forward for Leviathan. Well, so anyway, that bothered me a bit, but I'm thinking that the people who say that and that they were disappointed in the book are going to have to go back and reread it to connect with the things that maybe they missed. Because some very important things happen in the King of Shadows that, again, throw their own shadows for Leviathan. The next book in this series, though, and I just want to throw this out at you and see what you think, is a book of short stories. And it's something I've wanted to do for many years, and it's something I thought about doing after I did River of Souls. But the time just wasn't right. It didn't feel right to do it yet. So the book is called 7 Shades of Evil, but there are actually 8 stories in it, and I haven't quite finished it. I'm working on it right now, but I'm terrible at judging the length of things, and the last Matthew story in it is well over 100 pages, so it's not really a short story. It's more of a novelette. But I wanted to do something that emphasized the other characters in Matthew's world. Because let me just say, I love this world. I love Matthew's world. I love the world of the colonial world of New York. I love all the people that are in it. And the extra characters. There's a Minx Cutter story. There's a story of Minx Cutter and Catherine Harrell. There's a story of Catherine Harrell by herself. The story with Hudson by himself. Hudson and Matthew, then Matthew by himself. And there's a story with Barry Grigsby by herself. So I wanted to bring other characters into focus. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to do with Professor Phil or the Mirror, but it's something I've wanted to do for many years. And I think this is the time to do it. So, you guys okay with that? Yeah. Okay. That's good. Well, I want to take questions a little bit later and just talk back and forth to some of the things you guys think about the series. So I'm very interested to hear. But in the meantime, would you care for me to do just a little reading? Just a little reading. I won't go very long. But I'm going to read from page 13. Matthew and Barry are in a tavern, and she is going to be going on the ship in the morning back to the colonies from England, and she's very upset about that. But he's made this bargain with Professor Fell that she can leave. So he's trying to explain to her why he's going with Professor Fell and what's ahead. So this is where we begin. The time had arrived. Matthew began. You recall our visit to the chapel estate. Lest I try to forget, she said with a twist of the mouth. Yes, certainly. Well, he didn't wish to dwell on the fact that a mound of horse manure had saved them both from having their eyes plucked out by Simon Chapel's trained hawks. When I went back to the estate, after all that was over, I found a book. He hesitated. In for a penny, in for £100. A book, she repeated. Now, please bear with me. The book I found is a volume titled The Lesser Key of Solomon, a very interesting publication, and as I later discovered, a rare distribution. All right, so you found a religious tome. What is it? A religious tome? Not exactly, except perhaps to some. The volume in Chapel's library was hollowed out as a hiding place for a key to another book holding a bag of money. Only it wasn't a book, it was a box made to look like a... Well, anyway, the curious thing is that I discovered a second copy of The Lesser Key of Solomon in Phil's library on Pendulum Island, and a third copy in his house at the village. I wouldn't have thought of that man as being religious. Ah, said Matthew, and now came the blast of the cannon, though delivered as meekly as a mouse's mew. The tome is a catalog of the demons of hell, where there are descriptions and purposes. Also instructions on how to summon them for particular needs. He kept his eyes on his wine glass, but even so he saw her give a start. It was so severe the breeze from it almost killed the candle. What? He fortified himself with a drink of claret. To go on, he must. It is Professor Fell's intent to use that book in determining which demon to call up from a mirror created by a sorcerer in Italy just for that purpose. And now he did raise sickly eyes upon a face which a moment before had been glowing but now appeared as gray as a scribbed out wash rag. You see, he said, with perhaps the most absurd half-hanging grin he'd ever managed to impose upon his mouth. Oh, my Lord, Barry breathed, when she could find the air. Have you come all this way to lose your senses? Furthermore, Matthew trudged on upon this sulphurous surface, I have bargained with the professor to help him in his efforts to find the mirror. Again, the weight of his dumb grin shamed his face. Now really, don't look like that. Such a thing can't be true. My ears, she said, her eyes wide. I can't be hearing this. Am I still drugged? I bargained with Phil, Matthew said, to let me leave the village and find the stolen book of potions that would return you to reality. Also, that he would put both you and Hudson on a ship back to New York and be done with any idea of revenge he might have in mind for my past transgressions against him on behalf of the Herald. Madness, she interrupted. He's mad, and he has infected you with it. Matthew, are you even hearing yourself? Believe me, I wish I wasn't. I think, she said, I need something stronger than this wine. Matthew, are you telling you intend to help Professor Fell call up a demon from hell itself? Did his face want to slide down off his skull? He gave a nervous little laugh. You make it sound a bit ridiculous. It is insane. And you're a man of such intelligence, or at least I presume so. Not only to speak of the insanity of it, but she struggled for a further description. Evil of it. She said, evil of it. Yes, thank you very much, Barry said. Her voice had gotten away from her and was reaching other tables. She spent a moment composing herself while Matthew had another drink to finish off the glass. No, she said at last, more quietly but no less fervently, I would never put myself in the position of barring your way to any advancement. But I'll put myself in the path of your eternal damnation at the hands of that maniac. You can't do it, Matthew. No, tell me you won't do it. Hear me out, he said, and the tone of his voice might have had in it some of Julian Devaine's matter-of-fact gravity, because it froze from escape the next words intended from Barry's lips. Let me explain about why Phil kidnapped the opera star, Madame Candelieri. It wasn't to secure her, but to get her makeup girl, Rosabella. It seems Phil discovered that Rosabella is a cousin to the man named Brazio Valeriani, and saw him 3 years ago at the funeral of Valeriani's father in Salerno. That's in Italy. I am a teacher, and I know my geography, she replied, with a suitable mixture of fire and ice. Yes, of course. Pardon. Anyway, I found out from Rosabella that Valeriani's father, Ciro, had an interest in science and had created something that he tried to destroy, but was unable to. His death was suicide by hanging. But every year on her birthday, Rosabella received the gift of a hand mirror Ciro had fashioned in his workshop. So obviously he had an interest not only in science, but also the art of mirror making. Matthew paused to take a breath. He thought Barry might interject, but she remained silent. He went on. When Julian and I were on our mission, I found out from someone else the whole story of the supposedly enchanted mirror, if such is to be believed. He decided there was no need to bring the name of Cardinal Black into this. Let's hope that thing had either frozen to death or crawled back to his hole after their escape from Samson Lash. The tale, and I shall take this with a handful of salt as you should, is that the death of Ciro's wife threw his mind off balance and began to be intrigued by the darker arts. He, in time, paid to be introduced to an aged man who I suppose one would call a wizard, sorcerer, warlock, whatever the proper term might be, by the name Sema Celestre, who, according to my informant, was well known to the sort of individuals who follow such things and who passed away last August at the age of 94. But Celestre helped Ciro with the construction of a freestanding, full-length mirror, and, as I understand, added the reflective element from his own workshop. The purpose for the thing was to summon a demon from hell. Then the mirror would serve as a passageway. Insane, said Barry, but then returned to silence. Yes, Possibly so. Probably so. Bursting at the gate of his mind was an episode he had so far been successful at forgetting or even pretending to never happen. A night ride in service to a strange client named Carlos von Essen on behalf of an even weirder individual named Wallach Barbenkier, bringing Matthew into the middle of a war between, and that's one of the stories in the short story book. Well, they were made of nightmares, whatever they'd been, and in speaking of the mirror with Hudson, the great one himself had said, think on it. What if it's real? Now don't speak and don't roll your eyes. You and I both know there's plenty out there that can't be put into little boxes or tied up with neat little bows. And for some, for sure, Hudson was correct. Of course, insane, Matthew meant it to Barry, but according to what I was told, to keep the salt at hand, as I've said, Cyril may have tried to call a demon through the mirror, lost his nerve, or came to his senses, and damaged it enough to close the passageway in time. Later, he may or may not have repaired it and then hanged himself. But where it is now is the problem. What you wish to solve for the professor, Barry said. Is he paying a fee to the Herald Agency? Yes, he is. The clothes you and I are wearing, the food and wine we're enjoying, the hotel, the nights we spent together, your life, and your freedom. Most certainly the best value for service this agency's ever received. I think the worst, if a man of his ilk could get hold of such a thing and it's actually true, oh my Lord, Matthew, what might become of the entire world? It's not true. It can't be. God himself wouldn't let such a thing exist. Maybe God himself damaged it through Cyril enough to stop the demons from coming out. Maybe then Satan himself went to work entrancing Cyril to fix it, and after that was done, the man realized he couldn't destroy it, and now he's talking insanities. Matthew said quietly, though the idea of a man being caught between two powers in eternal war made sense to him due to his own experience. This is my belief. If indeed the mirror still exists and it can be found, it's going to be simply an object of furniture. Yes, it may have been aided in its manufacture by a man who believed himself and who others may have believed to have been a sorcerer of some kind, but in the end, only a mirror. No more than that. As I say, if any part of it still exists. Somewhere in Italy? How do you know it's not elsewhere? How can you know? Not for any surety, but I know something that the professor has not known where to begin. I told him we are sailing for Venice, but nothing else. And why Venice in particular? Because, Matthew said, in speaking to Rosabella, she told me that at Cyril's funeral, Rosina inquired of her age. When she told him she was 13, he made the comment that 13 years was a good age for wine, especially for Amarone. It's thinking that Rosio might be involved in the wine business there, possibly himself the owner of a vineyard. Later I learned that Amarone comes from the province of Verona, Veneto region near Venice. So first we're searching for Cyril's son, and that's why the professor wanted information from Rosabella. Exactly. Matthew leaned back in his chair and took a deep breath. The brunt of it was done. To be perfectly exact, I told the professor I would find Graziano for him. The rest about the mirror is not my responsibility. I would think hard about that last statement, she countered. If you believe he's going to lead you to find the son, and before the mirror can be found, I suspect I may know him better than you do. After all, you will have proven yourself a success in the worst possible way. True, man, he didn't see it. He sat silently for a moment, listening to the strolling girl with the guitar sing the lamentation of Chloris, which seemed fitting at the moment due to the amount of time he and Barry were to be absent from each other. If Barry followed the path of Gloria out of despair at their parting, she would be opening her heart and bed to Ashton McCaggers, which is the most disagreeable image to have in mind. And as if reading that mind, and perhaps seeing the dour expression on Matthew's face, Barry asked, how long must you search for this man? A year, 2, 5? And also he may not have any knowledge at all of the mirror. Likely he sold to a junk dealer after his father's funeral. A possibility. As for the time frame, I believe a trip to the Amarone vineyards of the Veneto region may show quick results one way or the other. May, she repeated, shook her head. You should have had a lawyer draw you up a contract. The only lawyer in that bunch, said Matthew, is probably so addled by Fell's drugs that he thinks he's living in Sherwood Forest with the merry men. No, I have your life as a contract, and that's good enough for me. But why isn't Hudson going back to New York as well? I tried, he resisted, and that was all Matthew needed to say. She reached for his hand, grasped it and squeezed. Her eyes were brimming, but the tears were yet to fall. I am on the razor, she said, keeping her voice composed with a mighty effort. I dread like hell for you to do this. But I know you. I know that when you make a promise, you feel it's your duty to keep it, even in a situation as despicable as this. If you were to join me on board the ship home, I would rejoice to the angels. But instead I have to give you over to the devils, because that's your promise. And now the tears did drop, and getting a glimpse of their glimmer, the guitar girl turned away to air her lamentations in a less emotional area. I love you, Matthew, and I love your sense of duty. But I must tell you, I hate this moment like the blackest sin. I'm not too fond of it either, he said. With the most gentle smile he could muster, he leaned forward to give her a kiss. More intimate kisses would come later, minus an audience. Let's order another bottle, Shaw, he asked, and I had an idea. He got up, went to the guitar girl, and at her pause asked her to come to the table and sing the first verse of Lavender's Blue. She came along when Matthew had seated himself, and after strumming the first few chords, she began singing in her high, soft voice. Lavender's blue, dilly dilly, lavender's green. When I am king, dilly dilly, you shall be queen. Who told you so, dilly dilly? Who told you so? It was mine own heart, dilly dilly. It told me so. Perfect, said Matthew with his arm around Gary, who seemingly had melted into him. Thank you very much. And he sweetened his thanks with a large tip of Professor Bell's money that likely had been secured by cutting someone's head off. Thank you. It's a weird thing. You know, I get emotionally involved with these people. I really do, and it affects me. I was reading a short story that was emotionally affecting me to a group in Montgomery. So I'm reading the story, and I was so emotionally affected by this, I completely lost my voice. And I had to ask somebody from the audience to come up and read the story. So it's a love story, but it's a sad love story. So I said, you know what? I can do that. I'm going to tackle that story again. So I read that in the constant. I got to the emotional part. It was like, gag. It's somebody's going down me. Same thing. So, but that's a good thing. What author does not want to be emotionally involved with his or her characters? You know, because the way I feel about the people are the way, hopefully, you're going to feel about it. You know, if I don't care, you're not going to care. And so, it has to first come through me. I don't know if you know, but I don't work with an outline. I just go, and it always miraculously, as a miracle works out. I don't really want to know. I mean, I have an idea. I have like the signpost scenes. First signpost scene, middle of the book signpost scene, at the end. I really don't want to know what's going to happen all the way through. I want it to be a surprise to me. It's a surprise to me. It's a surprise to the audience. All right, I'm going to stop talking for a little bit. Questions? Anybody? Yeah.
Not so much a question. I just wanted to make sure that Hudson made it to the end, please.
Very important things happen in this book that are associated with Hudson's end in the series. I can't say. Some very important things do happen. Yeah.
Is there a link between this and Swan Song's Mirror?
That was more like a piece of glass, wasn't it? Wasn't it like a piece of glass that was...
Didn't you get something from Rusty? It was like a hand mirror.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
I think it is.
I'm not going to talk about it.
Maybe so. Again, but I have to say, one mistake I really made, I made a huge mistake in doing this series, is I did not write down the names of characters. So I find myself, I like that name, and I put that name down, and I reread something else, and there's that same name in another book. I realized in reading through Swan Song, I used my entire repertoire of names. There's so many names in that book, it's insane. But anyway, I guess I do come back to certain things, certain themes, and maybe the reason I come back to that is I was raised by my grandparents. My grandfather had this huge mirror. And we had a huge, like a fruit orchard back behind our house. And the interstate came through before everything up. But my grandfather blind dad with this huge full-length mirror. He would tilt the mirror to look at the traffic as it went past. And that mirror was always a cool looking mirror. Maybe that's what got me interested in mirrors. Yeah.
I want to know how you come up with your characters' names.
Well, I have for this series. I have a book of the census of New York in the 1700s.
Because they're quite interesting names.
Well, unfortunately, that census book is not that useful because you look through it and it's like, let me pick out an unusual name. Let's say John. Okay, an unusual name for a woman. Okay, Mary. Really, that's it. Tremendous John and Mary names. So what I'll do is I'll go kind of far afield and I'll try to find unusual names, a British unusual name. That usually works. But again, I wish I was better than that. Because I think the name of a character has a tremendous amount to do with the personality of the character. So when the reader sees his name, you associate something. You associate something with the character with the name. And there could be strong names, there could be weak names. There could be a name for a hero, a name for a villain, and it's just the way it is. But anyway, the census is great to give you an idea of the people who live there, and a lot of Dutch people. But in terms of names, you have to go a little bit far afield. Yes?
You use a lot of foreign languages in your books, especially in the Corbett series. Do you actually speak French and Italian?
I wish I did. Thank God for Google Translate. I really wish I did. I would have gone back and done that. But because I like to do that, though, because I think it gives some authenticity. Google Translate is right, though. It gives some authenticity. As a matter of fact, I have a Russian character in one of the short stories in this book. And so I'm happy to do. And that's, trying to translate that is kind of interesting. But yeah, I wish I did know languages.
So what's next after the Matthew series is done?
I'm toying with a book called The Beast, and I have one called Danny's Inferno, and then I have one that I think may be my last book called, and I've been thinking about this for years, The Magic Collection of a Gentleman. Might be the last one. But I think I have 3 or 4 more to go. I think, as I keep coming up with ideas, and I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, onward and upward.
When you wrote Speaks the Night Bird, did you anticipate being in the 10-book series?
The reason I parted with Viking and with this editor is that after she read Speaks the Night Bird, she said, I want Matthew to fall in love with the witch girl immediately. I want him to immediately fall in love with her when he sees her in the cell. And I said, listen, she's been bathing out of a bucket for 5 months. He's not going to fall in love with her at first sight. Also, she says, and I want them to be married at the end of the book. She said, I think it's wrong for you to leave this character as you left her, even though she's in bad shape, but she's struggling back to normalcy. She's struggling to get her mind back, and she's going to make it. Because she does make it. Because he sees her in the River of Souls. But no, at that point I thought, I like this character, and I could take the character on. But when I first wrote the book, I wasn't thinking it was serious, but it just worked that way. Yeah.
How did you decide when to end it, or that it needed to come to an end?
I think because it has a story arc with Professor Fell in the mirror, I think after you reach that point, it's kind of an end. And the reason I wanted to go ahead and do the short story book in between this book and that book is when I really get to the end, it's going to be the end. I'm not going to want to go back to the characters, even though I have another character in mind, and you may know who it is, but another character who came up in, I think he came up in the last book, in Cardinal Platt. But anyway, who I may do a book about. I don't know. It's getting Lancer, the sheriff of that weird little town. But maybe. But anyway, after that arc is finished, I think that kind of, does the series. Yeah.
Do you think we'll see Julius Devane again?
No. He was cool, though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Real good art. I love that he said, and again, these characters surprise me because it's like a mystic thing. I mean, you hear a lot of authors say, "Oh, well, the character comes alive and comes in," and a lot of people say, "Oh, that's a bunch of malarkey because how could that possibly be true?" But it really is true. It really is true that they do come to life for you, and they start doing things that you're like, "Well, I'm just now a bystander. I'm a pedestrian watching this thing happen." But one of the cool things I think he said is, he says, at the end, he said, I hope, Matthew, that you find some of the bad man in yourself, because you're going to need it. He was a pretty cool character. Yeah.
I know this probably gets asked a lot, but you've written 2 Trevor Lawson
Right.
novels, and I think I heard you maybe even had an idea for a 3rd one, and maybe even a title for it.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen?
I don't know. I got asked to do the first one. The first is going to kind of be a existential thing where he wanted you doing something. And then obviously the second one's like the Galbraith would have said, "Well, I don't think it's really good unless you know step it up." But it couldn't be wrapped up in the second. It would have to be wrapped up in a 3rd or 4th one. But I've got so much going on right now, I just haven't gotten to it. I might like to get to it in the future, and that's another thing. I might like to get back to that, But maybe. But again, I've got so much going on, which is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Isn't it weird how my voice went reading that? Because I was emotionally, and now it's back. And you may wish it wasn't back. But as proof that I was emotionally involved with those people, and that's an amazing thing to me that it's really real. Did someone? Oh yeah.
When you read Swan Song again, did you find any errors?
I was looking for errors. I did not. And as a matter of fact, I thought for many years that I'd made an error at the end that I just let go because I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And when I read it, I realized I did not make an error, and it has to do with the prayer there at the end where they're trying to stop the doomsday machine from going off. I thought I cheated a little bit, and I had not cheated. It was right. It was right, and I felt so good about it when I realized that. Yeah.
Will there be any new content in the special edition?
There's just an afterword. There's really not. I think they're repackaging it, and but I was going to say. So I'm really going to say I wish there was extra content. I'm not going to say that. No. Yeah.
So you became emotional while reading it, and that was excellent for us to experience. And I guess I'm asking you to pull back the curtain a little bit. You alluded to the fact that what the writing process is like for you and how you don't have necessarily a roadmap. Could you let us know what it's like, a day-to-day process when you're writing these characters are alive? Do you have to take 5 minutes afterwards and kind of pour yourself a stiff drink because you've gone through an emotional ringer while you're writing? Or
it's an interesting thing that I say they come to life, but they don't come to full fruition until the book is done. Until the book is done, and then like you write that thing and be emotionally involved in it. I'm in the character's mind, but I wouldn't get emotional like that until actually I read the whole scene and it's done. Because to me, in a way, it's more of you get more of the whole total picture when you, even as a writer, the total picture when you finish the book. You kind of realize when you finish it, a lot of things that it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize that I put that in there. I didn't realize what that meant. So sometimes when you finish, you get the whole picture. But I work at night. I start working about 10 at night. I work sometimes till 4 in the morning. And right now, I'm on a real crash system of where when I get to 4 in the morning, it's like, oh, you just got to do a few more pages, and then it gets to be 6 o'clock in the morning, and your day's shot, right? So that's what I'm on, and I'm trying to correct myself. But that's the way it's going now. Yeah.
What's your favorite piece of work you've written?
Looking back, I think. Well, all right. I would say. In the series, which I'm most proud of, I would have to say Boy's Life, because it has reached so many people around the world. You'll make me emotional. Please don't do that. That book has helped so many people learn how to read and appreciate reading. The book is used on a reading test in South Africa. And it's been used on that reading test in South Africa for South African students for years. It is used across the world in reading classes. And I'm most proud of being able to be a part of that, being able to be a part of creating new readers. And also, I get so many messages from parents who say, my children hate to read, and they look at this book and they thought, oh my gosh, how can I read such a long book as this? And then they started reading, and it's like, you couldn't get them to put it down. That's wonderful. That is the most wonderful thing for an author to realize that work goes beyond them so many years, it affects so many people all over, and that's a really wonderful thing. Yeah.
Speaking of Boy's Life, I watched your speech where you might defend Boy's Life for being banned. I thought that was so awesome that you went down there, but you also...
I went down there the next day, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
When I found out that the previous day it was coming up to be banned.
Yes, and you flew right over.
I flew right down.
I read that on the website. That is so,
But it was
amazing.
funny, though. Let me add this real quick. It was funny, though, because the woman who was actually the person who was going to ban everything, they had a big stack of books. I don't know if you saw, if this is in the video or not. They had a big stack of books, and no, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay. And I'm sitting maybe about where you are, and this is okay, this is okay. And then she held up Boy's Life, and she says, and she looked at me and she said, but this is not okay. So it was like, okay, we're going to do the sort of like that. Oh yeah, it was like, because I was there. She was like, okay, let's fight, So, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
It's fine. I just thought it was so powerful that you felt so strongly about it, rightfully so, that you went down there and that they actually listened to you. But you also got emotional when speaking there, when you were reading comments about, how much Boy's Life has touched so many people. Why do you think Boy's Life has touched so many people, especially people who aren't even from the generation that it's set in, people of all ages, all generations?
Well, for some, and I really can't explain exactly that, but I do think it touches something human in everyone and in every generation. The idea that there is there's a paradise somewhere. You just have to find it. It's somewhere. You have to look for it and find it. And hold it to yourself and hold the memory of it and work with the memory of it. There's paradise somewhere. And then and Zephyr was a little paradise. Though it had little bits of, of devilment in it. But it was a paradise. And maybe this is what people are looking for. I don't know. But it's a wonderful thing to know that, But But, again, that's another book I look back on and I say, I could never write that. I'm on something else. I was in a different mind space there. And I guess in a way I'm in a different mind space in every book I do, because every book I do is a little bit different, But anyway, yeah.
It seems that many of the old books in the 1800s, early 1900s have a lot of illustration.
Yes.
And it seems like more modern books don't seem to have as much illustration. Is that a cost issue more than anything else?
I think it's a cost issue, but as a matter of fact, there are illustrations here, which are pretty cool. Here's one right here. The whale of the show. All right, but to your point, it is more cost effective. But to your point, books in the 1800s were the great gift. I mean, you spend craftspeople spend a lot of time and effort to craft it, and so it's considered a total gift to someone, not just the reading, but the art. So that would be yeah.
Do you think we've lost something because of that?
Well, everything's gone so fast, of course. And it's just a society. Everything's gotten so fast. You're really kind of inundated by all sorts of entertainment venues and entertainment avenues of your choice. And you have to choose wisely because there's so much going on. And have we lost it? Well, we obviously haven't lost it because we're here to enjoy the reading and writing experience. So it still exists, but for the most part, probably not. Yeah, back Karen.
Yes, I know you can't tell us very much about the film projects.
Yeah.
That's okay. But I did want to know the three specific ones that are possibly in mind. Are they ones that you wanted to see come to the big screen for a long time? I mean, as an author, I'm sure it's cool in any of your books. But
I'm going to tell you something, and I know this is in film, right?
Yes.
In film. I don't really care. Years and years ago when I got the first option, oh, wow, this is great. Oh, I'm so excited about this, but it never happened. And then on and on. And it would be great if it happened because it would mean, I would say it would mean that more people would be reached by my work. But what if it's a big disaster? A disaster could be a big mess. You could think, why in the world I let them do this? Well, I will have to say, though, I will jump in and say that there was a move to do a Matthew Corbett series.
I was wondering about that.
But they were going to base it on the first book. And they got it, I'm sorry, this is again film, but I don't think the person will see it. Well, if he does, who cares? He just did a terrible job screenwriting. And that's something I wouldn't do because I'm not proficient screenwriting. I don't work with a committee, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to work on my own, but it was a terrible thing, and I had to say no. I mean, I think it was AMC, maybe it was AMC. Anyway, so I said, hold back. I said, let me finish. You can't just write on the basis of the first book. You're setting it up for the first book. You can't do that. So I said, let's wait. Let's pull back. Let me finish the series first, and then let's go back and shop it and see what happens. So that. But again, when I say I don't care, because I enjoy my writing and what I do, and I enjoy where I am and what I do. And if somebody does that, that's great. It may not be great. It may be horrible. But I'm in total control of what I do. That's what I like. I like to be in total control of what I do. And I'm totally responsible for what I do. So if the movies or TV series are made, whatever streaming series, it's somebody else's responsibility. Well, it will have my name on it. Yeah, yes.
What author inspired you to write?
As a kid, I read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe. I read a lot of the Sherlock Holmes stories, all those. I read, you're asking me to really fill in a lot of stuff. Hardy Boys books, Doc Savage, Edgar Rice Burroughs, science fiction magazines, Galaxy, Analog, amazing, fantastic magazines, Famous Monsters of Filmland, Tarzan series, James Bond. Sergeant Rock, I want to read more comic books. I mean, so much there. There's so much there. I can't really, and all that came together, as it does in every writer for each to their own influences. You know, so the hardest thing for me though was to be an individual, because I came up at the time when, of course, King was massive, dominating the field, and I came up, you know, in the shadow, and I had to figure out where I stood there. You know, what could I do that was different? Because really, I got a lot of grief from King's fans, because they just wanted King. They didn't want another. But no, thank you. But when I said, you know, I'm going to kind of move away from horror and do historical, those same people who kind of, you know, gave me a bad time got mad at me again, because they wanted it, but they didn't want it. You know. Anyway, I had to kind of determine what were my particular strengths and my particular talents. And I do think one of my particular strengths is being able to bring history, historical story, into the modern era and make it interesting. Okay. Anyone? Yeah.
Well, I got a little question, but I just want to speak to Nightbird. And there was a character in the book that her house had a wasp nest in it. And the claim was that the wasp nest, there's a wasp nest in it.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right.
And the claim was the wasp kept away the other insects. Is this something that you actually discovered?
It is actually true.
It's actually true.
It's actually true. Actually true. They would in some houses they would put something up there that would attract the wasps to build a nest. They had that down as a science, I guess. And they put that, and it was above your head, and it supposedly kept out other insects. That is actually true. Actually true. Believe it or not, it's actually true. Yeah.
Why do you kill so many dogs in your books?
Do I really kill many dogs? Now, let me ask you this. You think I'm a bad guy that I like kill? No, I've had that comment. You're a bad guy, you like to kill dogs.
It's usually the bad people doing it. I didn't know if you did it to highlight their characters or want to evoke emotional response.
Good point. But I would say also, you know, people don't feel that way about actors. People don't feel like, you know, the guys playing Jeffrey Dahmer is really like, you know, going to go out and kill and eat somebody. You know, they don't feel that way. But it's an author, you know. Okay. Very basic trade secret is, and this it's going to sound a little bit like I'm doing that, but I'm really not. A surefire way to get sympathy from a reader is to have a dog killed that someone loves, or have a dog hurt that someone loves. A surefire way to hate somebody is to have that person kill or hurt a dog, as happened in The Listener. I don't know if you know The Listener, but that happened in The Listener. Right off the bat, you know this guy is really, really bad because of what he did. But it's really not me. I mean, it's again, I understand the character. You have to understand the character. You have to understand motivation. It's really not me because I'm like the method actor, which really I am. You know, I'm a good guy. Anyone? Yeah.
You talked about the school board meeting in Hernando County. I actually live in Hernando County, went to school.
Oh, you did, really?
Well, there, so you came to see us. So
Oh, yeah.
Come to see you here.
Well, thank you.
But I had another question. I collect special edition books, and I know you had a lot published with Subterranean Press.
Right.
Some published with. Some of them sit there, Dan, and now you're working with a video publication. What goes into choosing who to go with in that regard? Or is there a decision-making process? Do you do it, or do you have somebody else who's worried about that for you?
It's been well. Okay, one part of this is writing the other party's business, you know, and you have to safeguard yourself in terms of business because sometimes you can be taken advantage of, and really I can't. Since we're on the air, I really can't go much into that. But it's a matter of taking care of myself in terms of business. you know. Now, having said that, everybody I work with, they've done beautiful books. There's no doubt about it. They've done gorgeous books. But sometimes I've been a little upset at some of the business. I'm getting over my head over here. Some of the business models, let's put it that way. Some of the business models, and so that was something I had to do.
I was glad to see you go with Levidian.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Brian James Freeman's awesome. So hopefully that works out well.
Doing a beautiful job. You know, this gorgeous job, as you can see, and even this little markers that he has in there, and then of course the drawings are really nice. So yeah.
One more. Who gets the last?
One more. Let's make it a really good one.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What would you redo?
We're
If you had a chance to revisit and redo, is there one?
No. Because I did the best I could do on every book, and I could see that there's an error or two here. There's something that I wish I had taken care of, but you know what? At the time, I did the best I could possibly do, and so I wouldn't go back. So one more question. Did you have one more? Did somebody over there have one more? One more? Okay. Yeah.
Kind of following up with that, if you had to revisit like the cliffhanger in, say, Usher's passing, would you ever follow up a story with that?
With that? Again, I did the best I could do, you know, and that's, I can't go back. And again, I have developed in a different way from them, and I'm not the same guy who wrote that. Incidentally, you know, there's an Usher's Fall of the House of Usher streaming thing coming up here pretty soon. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, Mike Gallagher, was it Gallagher who did
Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan, who did on the Hill House, and Mike Flanagan, great show. That's a great show. He's doing it, and I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but it's going on here pretty soon. But yeah, I couldn't go back and do anything because I just keep going forward. Well, all right, let me add. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And you know, for a writer, I particularly work in solitude. You know, so it's so gratifying to me to see people come out and appreciate your work and ask you about your work and want to know the process and want to know how you feel about the characters and about me. And so it's really gratifying. I've been doing this for many, many, many years. And I think I'm just I hope I'm getting better with time. I think I am. I hope I am. But again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all. I really do.
I'll take executive privilege and follow up on your question. Everybody here that thinks he's been doing pretty good, let him know. And the best is yet to come. If you will, please keep your seats. Mr. McCammon will make his way to the signing table, and he will sign all of your books. Okay, great.